What's up, everybody? I'm Scott,
I'm Jason.
and welcome to the next episode of Liquid Carnage. What's up, dude?
Oh, Scotty, it's good to see you, man. How you doing?
I am good for a Monday. It was a busy week last week. A lot of things happening, a lot of good things happening, both for Liquid Carnage and me. So I'm just excited to get this show going today.
All right. Well, I'm excited too. We've been talking about it for a few weeks. It all started back on Hans Gruber Fest, so let's do it.
Yeah, how's cubicle life treating you?
It's doing pretty well. You know, we had that great episode last week about the virtual world, and I'm living in it. And today was no exception. I was in conference calls till about 3:30 this afternoon before I got a break. So
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy,
Wow.
dude. It's crazy.
Does that drive you mad at all? Does that just drive you mad and crazy? You can't get up, walk around. You can't go pee. You can't listen to music, or what's the deal?
Well, I have a little headset that I can wear that's pretty nice, but sometimes the meetings don't go as long as they're supposed to. So that's when you get some quiet time. Is when you had a meeting scheduled for 35 minutes or 30 minutes and it only goes 5 minutes. So it works out good.
So then you have a little bit of free time to do your own thing.
Yeah, it gives me a little free time to maybe listen to some sports radio, maybe listen to some music.
Oh, music. So what are you listening to these days?
Yeah, I don't listen to much music anymore, but when I do, top 40, baby.
All top 40, huh?
Got me a little bit of Taylor Swift. Got me a little bit of some people I don't even know. I mean, there's so many things. There's so many things I see that I don't even know some of these people.
Yeah, it's music. Music is actually something that you and I have not argued. We've gone back and forth over quite a few times.
Yeah, I mean, not as much as movies. Not as much as movies.
Not as much as movies. Not at all. But we've had our own rows about music and whatnot. So I thought tonight, since you brought that up, it would be a fun conversation for us to discuss your top 5 albums that define your life and your top 5 favorite artists.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about mine as well. But I just want to dig a little bit deeper into Jason Edgeworth and see what's in there. What makes you musically.
Well, okay, so let's start with this question then. What defines an album that would make my top 5 by your definition?
I mean, what is an album that you've just grown up with, that it doesn't matter when you hear it, or even if you hear a song from it, it takes you back to that one time in your life, or that one era where, yeah, you know what, that album, I had it playing in my car, it was always going on in my room. I can identify with every song on that album.
Oh, wow. Well, okay, yeah, okay, so I don't listen to music like that, so this is going to be a little bit of a challenge for me, but I'll do my best.
Okay.
Journey's Greatest Hits was an album. It wasn't a specific one album, but the Journey's Greatest Hits was the album that I was listening to in college my freshman year. So my first year in the dorms, I was listening to Journey and their greatest hits. So I fell in love with all of those songs, Faithfully and
Wheel in the Sky.
Yeah, Wheel in the Sky. Well, all the hits that came from Journey. I mean, Journey probably had 13, 15 hits on that album. And back in 1990, that was what was released, was that album, Journey's Greatest Hits.
Well, you can argue that Journey was one of the bands of the late 70s and 80s that really defined rock music back then, too. I mean, they had their own sound, and they really, talked to people in their early 20s and 30s,
Yeah, well, and I think what made it special in my memory was just because it was my first year of adulthood. Up until then, I was kind of living at my parents' house, and then when I went to college, that album was being played all over the dorms, and it just struck a special chord with me. I bought the album itself it was a CD, but you know what I mean. And I played that thing out. Absolutely played it out.
It's funny when you mention that. I look back what I thought my top 5 albums were just growing up, and I'd say 3 of the 5 came from my college era. That's when I realized that music was so important to me.
Yeah, well, and I think I think there were so many things that happened my freshman year also. that were part of that whole time. That it's hard for me not, and I'm not a huge Journey fan by any stretch of the imagination, but that album means a lot. Kind of sticking with the greatest hits, James Taylor's greatest hits. Is one of my favorite albums. Fire and Rain and Something in the Way She Moves and Mexico, and the album was a white cover. It was just a white cover with his name and then a list of songs. But as you know, I like to play guitar a little bit, and I love playing James Taylor, and just love the songs that he has in his music library. He has hundreds of songs. I mean, I have a complete set of his songs, and my goodness, dude, there's so many songs that he's written.
It's funny. What a lot of our listeners probably don't realize is that you can pick up a guitar and hear any song and play it from almost eidetic memory. You can just figure out the notes and whatnot and play it. And I've heard you do this with James Taylor, the Rolling Stones, and Jerry Douglas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I've always had a pretty good ear for music. I like playing the guitar. I wish I was better at it, but for what I can do, like if you put me in a fire, like a barbecue, or you put me on a campfire, I can pick up a guitar and I can play a lot of songs for people that mean a lot. So that album, I think I just like that album just because it's James Taylor.
What about original albums, not greatest hits albums? Because you said a lot of your top fives are greatest hits. Do you have any like original releases?
Oh yeah, like Back in Black by AC/DC.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a great one.
It's a good album, and the reason why that one plays such an important part in my life is I lost my virginity to that album.
Really?
Yeah. I was in high school. And the girl that I was talking to, when we started getting down, she put on AC/DC, and so dun 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 dun, and I knew that at that point I was totally screwed, both literally and figuratively. Yeah.
Yeah, in a literal sense too.
Yeah, both ways. Yeah. So that album, obviously, Back in Black by AC/DC was a really good album for me.
So we have Journey, we have James Taylor's greatest hits, Journey's greatest hits, the AC/DC Back in Black. That was the first album with Brian Johnson, the lead vocals, right?
Yes. Oh, maybe I don't. Yeah, it may not have been. I don't know if it was his first album, but it was It was the first one that had a critical acclaim that had him as the lead singer. Yeah.
It's the first one I recognize Brian Johnson as being a part of, so whether it is or not, I guess it's all personal preference.
Yeah.
So that's three.
Yeah.
Give me your other two.
Okay, so this is where I have to start digging real deep because there are some albums that don't really mean anything to me at all. But U2's The Joshua Tree.
That's not a bad song on that album.
Yeah, and that album was just during a time in high school when I was all student body president. I was leads in the school plays. It was probably the highlight of my my high school career.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah.
So when Bono's up there playing and Edge is up there playing, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. And that really sung to you.
With or Without You is actually the one that's
stuck with you.
Yeah, that was the song that when the sun's set in your eyes, I want you to go and spread your thighs, and I'll wait for you.
I think that's a song, not your version of that song, but the original version of that song. It was probably played at every school dance for the next 10 to 15 years, and probably still is played today for all accounts.
Yeah,
all intents and purposes.
Yeah. And then I got to admit the final songs that just kind of stuck a chord with me is when I was out of college and kind of working my newfound I can drink legally, I can party, was Dr. Dre and Snoop Doggy Dogg, Ain't Nothing But a G Thing, baby. You low down chicks going crazy. And I remember we were sitting in a club in Seattle, Washington, and that song just came out. It was probably 94, 95 maybe. And just do 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 do, and then that beat came on, and the whole club was just. I mean, it wasn't people. It was a group. It was one group of people moving, and it slowed down when that song came on, and the image in my head when that song came on, and you just saw this group just become one. There was no couples, there was no individuals. Everyone was just moving almost as if they were dancing together.
Right? It's amazing what one song or one chord can do that.
Yeah.
Do that to a crowd, you know.
And I think that's, I mean, not before we get into yours, I found it when I was looking for these kind of albums. I kept coming back to times in my life where it was different than every other day before and every other day since. That album spoke to me in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I'll hear songs on the radio, on Pandora, Amazon, whatever I'm listening to, like from my albums that I've chosen, and it just takes me back, like, oh, I remember that. And you know, nowadays you don't really get to see, you don't see too many albums like that because people can pick and choose songs off Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, whatever. So you don't have to buy the whole album.
Yeah.
And I think that's good in some ways, but I think it really takes away from the time and the quality that a lot of these artists put into their music, because you find a lot of deep hidden gems in some of those albums. Well,
and let's be honest. I mean, how many times have we talked about the one hit wonder, or we talked about, you know, they have like no offense to Alanis Morissette, but she had one album. It was an amazing album, but most people remember the songs that, you know, that she had on there. But
how many women from 1994 and 95 identify with Jagged Little Pill because they were going through all that stuff? I mean, they weren't dating Dave Coulier, Uncle Joey from Full House, but they were going through that breakup and they just felt the anger, the animosity, so they can identify that. If you ask people what their 5 top albums are in our demographic, your age and my age, I would not be surprised to see a good chunk of the women, if we surveyed them, have that album on there.
Well, or at least be referencing and say, oh man, that was an awesome album. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that feeling of it brought them back just like it brings us back too.
You know, it's funny, I still hear You Want to Know every so often. It's like, yeah, man, she just belted it on that.
Oh, God.
She was just so angry.
Yeah.
And just visceral. It was amazing. My brother had that album, and that was my first taste of Alanis Morissette.
Oh yeah.
And he played it all the time on the way to taking me to school every day, and it was just, you just feel just like the anger and the angst. And now that I'm older, I can completely understand why she was pissed.
Oh yeah.
Back then I didn't have any fucking clue.
Well, and you know, sometimes you wonder where these people are now, and then you realize, yeah, the guy who created the Beats Corporation was Dr. Dre. I mean, like, he totally went in a totally different direction, and now is a multi-billionaire.
Absolutely, and that's the cool thing. You never know where you're going to go with these albums, but that's what an artist is. Though you never know where it's going to take you. You have to be free flowing and willing to go.
Right.
And I wish I had half the talent all these musicians have. Man, if I had half of that, I would take it and run.
Well, I think that it opens up my eyes to the fact that we think that it's so easy and, oh my gosh, they make so much money. Most of the time you watch these stories of these artists, that's their life. That's all they do. It's hard work. It's a tough business. And, you know, it's subjective, right? I mean, what someone likes or someone dislikes is such a subjective opinion that it doesn't really... It doesn't give people the chance to say, oh yeah, that's just really good, because it's such a subjective opinion. Are you released in the right way? Is the song written to your talent, or is it written for someone else? Or
and so many artists have such a huge collection of songs they've written or produced they just never released. You know, I was reading an article about Chris Stapleton, who's really one of the biggest stars in country music right now, and he's starting to cross over to the mainstream. They were talking about, it's like, when you write an album, what do you do? You know, what do you choose to put on the album? He goes, well, I'll be honest, I've been writing songs for so long. I just have I have a catalog that I just go through and I figure out which ones I think would be good, and I plug those in. I'm still writing, but a lot of the songs I have, I've had written for years.
Wow. Yeah. Good point. You know? Good point.
Okay. It's a labor of love.
So who are your top 5, Scotty?
Well, let's recap yours, though. You've got Journey's greatest hits. You've got James Taylor's greatest hits, AC/DC's Back in Black.
Yeah, baby.
You got Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, and what was your fifth one?
It was U2, Joshua Tree.
U2, Joshua Tree, that's right, I'm sorry. So my first one, it was the very first album I ever bought. It was Billy Joel's Stormfront.
Oh yeah, we didn't start the fire, right?
We didn't start the fire. Downeaster Alexa. I didn't know. I set up my Alexa by accident. Sorry. There were so many songs on the album. I was I think 7 or 8 when it came out, and the CDs were just coming out at that point. I remember we had one CD player in the house and a big stereo in my parents' living room, man. And whenever my parents went to work or whatever else, I'd play that album. I'd listen to every song, and I loved it. And I didn't really understand the depth of the breadth of those albums or of those songs at the time, but God, man, I still listen to that stuff. It's like, that takes me back to my childhood of not caring but knowing I love that song and that we didn't start the fire music video.
Wow. And that was what year was 95?
No, that was like 87 or 88.
God, you were that old, dude? You were a young pup, man.
I was a young pup, man. I didn't start to really understand music until like most kids, like 10 or 11.
Gotcha.
But I just knew that I loved Billy Joel because my mom, growing up, would always listen to the same rotation of albums. My brother and I got a steady diet of Rod Stewart, Phil Collins, Billy Joel, the Phantom of the Opera soundtrack, Pavarotti.
Yeah.
So, whenever VH1 used to do this thing, back when those music channels played music videos, they would do like 24 hours of Phil Collins, 24 hours of Billy Joel, and Rod Stewart, and we would sit there and watch the music videos and the documentaries all day long, over and over and over, because we just knew the songs, we loved them. And Rod Stewart and Phil Collins probably should have made my list too, because they were such a huge impact on my life. But there's not just one album they have that. Well, I guess you can call No Jack Required was probably a pretty good one too, but not on my list. The next one for me was like, it was all about high school for me at that point. It was Third Eye Blind's debut album.
Oh yeah, that was a good one too.
Yeah, God, man, just at that age, you just started to identify with all the music, and that was right when alternative music was like the Nirvana was dying down, and it wasn't quite there anymore. The Alice in Chains, the Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, they were coming off, and this is the next level of alternative music. And those guys, that was just a great album.
Yeah, that has a lot of good songs on it.
Semi-Charmed Kind of Life, Jumper. I hear that takes me back to like working at Baskin Robbins at 16 years old.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to ask the girl out for the first time. Things like that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
And then probably the one that, and people will make fun of me for this for years, and I'm okay with it. The one that, I understood, because it was one of those albums that came out at the right time in your life. For what a lot of women would probably identify Jagged Little Pill with, my generation, Limp Bizkit's Significant Other was just... And I can hear you laughing.
No, I like that. I just like Limp Bizkit's Significant Other.
Oh my God, that was their second album, and when that thing hit, it was their sellout album. Don't get me wrong, but oh my God, Fred Durst with Nookie, Break Stuff, and Together Now. I knew that album back to front to back, and I loved it. Like, I loved that song. It's those songs, and I could identify with everything, especially Break Stuff. Man, I had so much pent up anger and aggression back then. It was one of my favorite albums for years. Like, going back and forth from Kingman to Tempe for school, I would listen to that album, just on repeat.
Wow.
Oh, it was good.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man. I mean, not necessarily that album, but that feeling of just, for whatever reason, it's the lyrics or it's the beat or it's the music itself, something just talks to you. Like, it's something different than just every other song you might hear on the radio.
Exactly, and that was the time where the lyrics just hit, and the guitar riffs were just perfect with everything. And a lot of people would tell me I'm out of my mind, but like I said, this is all personal preference. And that's just one that, like, I still have that album on my phone. I love it so much. It's just like I can still go back to it on like heavy lifting days in the gym. Something you just groove to and get you in that right mindset. Oh, so after that, man, I got to go with Stain's album "Break the Cycle."
So now I'm starting to see my age, because I don't know who that is.
You don't know who Stain is? Aaron Lewis.
Oh, I went gambling. That's right.
You
Okay.
went gambling that night. When Aaron Lewis came through Laughlin a few years back on his one-on-one tour, we all went some except for you. And that's the man who's one of the most musically talented people I've ever seen who could play anything. And now he's a country artist on the side. Like, he does solo stuff through country, and it's amazing. But when he's with Stained, he's definitely heavy metal. And their album Break the Cycle there's not a bad song on there, and it just identified, again, just that time, like early 20s, mid 20s, where you don't think anything's going right, and you're sullen. It's a very depressing album, which is funny because the follow-up album is after he got married and had kids, and he's very happy, and life's totally different than it was Break the Cycle. But it brought you like that early having to deal with the breakups and having to deal with real life issues that you never thought you'd deal with before.
No, yeah, I'm with you. I like I said, it's all about the timing. I mean, I love to think about some of these albums if they were like, would Joshua Tree be as good if it was released 20 years later or 10 years later?
Yeah.
Or was it because Stained at that time, before he got happy, before he got life going, was just dark and had the right whatever chemical balance or whatever you want to call it?
Exactly, and it's amazing. Like, you can go through and listen to the contrast of music they have, like he has now versus 15 years ago. And it's funny because this solo career, he sings about like taking his daughter fishing and what it was like growing up with his dad. A totally different context of than doing the drugs and going through all the breakups back then.
Right.
Different places in life, I guess.
Hey, yeah, exactly.
And then I think my final one. It's just like you have to have a greatest hits on there. And for me, it was Def Leppard's Vault.
Oh, there's some good songs out of that, too.
Vault, there was this, that's what I love about greatest hits albums. They have some of the best. And that is not all of Def Leppard's greatest songs. And Dean, our buddy Dean, would probably argue with me on some of these, but I didn't think there's a bad song on there. I loved Vault. That's another one that's a road trip CD for me, or album for me. I'll pull it up on my phone, I'll pull it up on Spotify, and just go.
Yeah, but you're right, though. The times have changed. I mean, they said that Taylor Swift sold over 1 million copies of her 1989 album a few years ago. They said that chances are that'll probably be the last album to sell more than 1 million copies as an album. That because of all of the music, Spotify and Amazon Prime Music and iTunes, that we're getting away from. We just want the best of the best. Everything else is just.
I don't want your shitty other songs. I want your good songs. I want your hit songs.
Well, and I mean, that's the thing is that you look at some of these artists now. I mean, some of these people are being discovered on YouTube, and some of these people are releasing videos on Twitter. It's just changed. It is.
It is, but if you're going to do something, I would implore anybody that listens to music not just to listen to the hit songs, but listen to the rest, man. 'Cause you find a lot of gems that grow on you. You find a lot of albums that you don't realize you really love so much. Because I've got more than 5 albums I could sit here and list as like my top 5 all-time favorites.
Oh yeah, me too.
And especially as you sit there and you start talking about it, it's like, man, I remember like when this song came out or when this album came out, we were doing this or doing that. Because we didn't even talk about like Stone Temple Pilots, their early Three Doors Down, just that whole genre of music. Guns N' Roses could have easily been one of my top 5. Use Your Illusion to me is just a transcending CD.
Oh, no, Appetite for Destruction, man. That album. Yeah, you're right. There are tons that define us. What do you think? I mean, we talked a little bit about it. What do you think defines it for you? Like, what do you think defines your top 5 for you as just albums that transcend over anyone else?
For me, it's when you name that album, and I can sit there and say, I remember where I was, what I was doing, what point in life I was at when that album came out. And for me, I'd say 4 of the 5 albums, everything except for Billy Joel, that was all in a 5 to 10 year lifespan for me. That was probably 16 to 25. That 9 years is when I discovered Limp Bizkit, Third Eye Blind, the Def Leppard album, and Stained, and it just all those musics just hit different points in my life because you realize how far you grow in that 10-year span.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an emotional connection. I think that's the amazing thing about music is there's an emotional connection that we all take. I remember we were talking to our Matt, right? And I mean, we were talking about the greatest bands ever, and his comment was, "That's easy, Metallica, dude. Like, what are you talking about? Like, there wasn't even a debate. There wasn't even
on the Gerber,
yeah, on the Gerber, right? And for him, that probably was more than just I really like their head banging, music. It was probably the lyrics hit me, and the meaning of the lyrics and the meaning of the lyrics during a time in my life where I'm emotionally connected to it. I think that's one thing that I think that music nowadays, there's so much of it out there, but so much of it is just beat. You know what I mean? Like, people focus just so much on the beat that I wonder if they really listen to the lyrics and see what the lyrics mean to them and what kind of what kind of meaning it drives them other than fucking hoes and let's bang some bitches and drink some Courvoisier.
Yeah, and it's funny. I listen to a lot of, like, right now, for the past couple years, it's been a lot of, like, Theory of a Dead Man, Shine Down, those type of rock bands for me, and that's kind of where I'm settling in at. And usually when those bands put out albums in the Hailstorm, I'll buy those albums, regardless, because I know I like the band's music, I like what they do. And the latest Theory of a Dead Man album really, to me, sounded more poppy than anything else. Like, if you sit down and you listen to the lyrics, like, what the hell are you guys doing? Yeah. This is 3 albums ago. You guys were killer. You guys were visceral. You guys were real, and it's like you sold out. And like you said, it goes back to the beat. It goes back to the bubblegum lyrics that sells records to the people that listen to Top 40. No offense,
Well, and I totally agree with you. I mean, there are some artists nowadays that you listen to them and you think that's your 15 minutes of fame. That's not going to sustain for the 50 years. You and I always debate who's better, Beatles, Rolling Stones, Beatles, Rolling Stones, and either way you look at it, whether you look at the longevity of the Rolling Stones or the catalog of the Beatles, both of those bands have stood the tests of 50 years.
That's true.
I mean, there's a lot of artists that are not going to have that sense of, I can survive 50 years.
Yeah. That's the hard part with a lot of this, too. It's, you can't, with the way they release music now, it's hard to find someone that's going to be that, self-sustaining. I don't know of any pop music. Like, I hear things on satellite radio. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Or what the shit is this?
Who is this fucking moron?
Like, is this what they're listening to now? This is terrible.
Well, the other problem too is, like, I'm gonna just throw out Taylor Swift. When Taylor Swift was 16 and she was writing all those songs that made her a star, you listen to those lyrics and those are some real powerful lyrics for a girl who's 16.
She was deep, man.
17, 18. But unfortunately, we live in this very short attention span world now that it's always constantly, well, what's your next thing? What's your next thing?
Yeah.
So the idea...
funny part is...
Go ahead.
I'll say, with Taylor Swift, like, you look at what she did earlier on, like, you're right, like, teardrops. It was impactful because she was writing from the heart, man. You did not want to be a guy that dated Taylor Swift because she would write a song about you and eviscerate you.
But the thing was, the songs were good. The songs are really good.
Yeah, but now if you listen to her stuff, it's like this. It's borderline like techno pop. It's like there's no heart. There's nothing behind it.
Well, and part of it, I know that there's evolution in music and there's evolution in that kind of thing. How important is it to stay true to your music? How important is that?
It depends how many dollar signs are after the commas on your paycheck.
Because I mean, James Taylor. If you listen to James Taylor's stuff, there's not a lot of difference between what he's doing in the '70s and what he's doing now. There's not a lot of difference.
But James Taylor's made his money in the '70s and '80s, where he was a megastar. Now he's got fuck you money, so he can do whatever the hell he wants to do.
Well, you don't think Taylor Swift has fuck you money too?
She does. She does, but she wants more fuck you money. James Taylor he's just doing this for the fun of it now.
Like, could you imagine? Think of one of your bands, and having them like Stained. No, wrong example. Do your your Limp Bizkit. Shine Down.
Okay, let's go Shine Down.
Shine
Let's do
Down.
Shine Down.
Popping it up a little bit so they could sell some more record sales.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's funny.
It's like, does it ruin the band who does that? Does it ruin the band who does that?
I've always had a theory that every band is real, and usually their biggest album is their realest, rawest album. Like Stain, for example, was Break the Cycle. That was real. That was raw. That was the album they made huge on because everyone identified with it at that point in time back in 2001.
Right.
And that essentially sold them out, and the record companies took notice, like, damn, we want you guys to do more, but we want you to do it like this. And then you cut to 13 Shades of Grey, which is their follow-up album 2 or 3 years later. And granted, life has happened, but now it's a much lighter, much happier tone. It's their sellout album. It's like all the fans that love the previous album will buy it because, man, they're hoping for a lot of the same, tone and context in the previous album. And they're finding it's completely more light and poppy. And it's not what we think it should be. And every major band does that. They might not admit it, but everyone sells out. That's the goal in life when you're in entertainment or music. You want to be paid millions, and to get paid millions, you have to sell out.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there a difference between selling out and evolving?
Yes. Yes. I think, I'll be honest, after you've sold out, you have to do 2 or 3 albums, whatever it is, and then usually a lot of those bands get back to their roots. Because we saw that with U2, man. U2 went completely sold out in the early 90s, mid-90s. Zeropa, Discotheque, those albums were not amazing albums. And it's just now finally getting back to where they're a bit more mellow and a little bit deeper as they've matured and realized, they've got their money. They can go back to being what it is to be an artist.
Right. Well,
and I think that's the big thing.
Well, and so is Taylor Swift selling out or is she evolving?
Because she's not in country anymore. She's evolved into pop music, but I think she went into pop because she sold out. I think she has to, with what she's doing right now, it's a sellout phase. I think she has to come back with more stripped down and meaningful music. Like, she has to have a major life event break her to make her take that step back and write that real powerful album.
Well, and I think, maybe it's just her audience is saying, look, I've gotten all your deep stuff. I want to have the pop music, or I want to have the disco music, or I want to have that. And obviously you got to cater to what the fans want. Yeah.
Well, at some point, though, her audience is going to grow up too, so she's going to have to evolve her music and grow up to, be something that they can identify with as well.
Like, I gotta be honest, I'm gonna sound so lame, and people are gonna write and say, "Oh, dude, Tom's gonna say what a jerk off. I want to punch you in the throat." But Justin Bieber, man, I like his last album. I liked it. It had a lot of good songs on it. Looked powerful lyrics, and
I'm sorry, we're breaking up on here. What'd you say? Maybe it was the static. I don't know. It sounded like you said Justin's Bieber last album was great.
I didn't say it was great. I said I liked his last album. I didn't say it was great. I didn't say I went and bought it. But when you listen to songs and you're listening, you're like, wow, that's a catchy tune. Who sings that? That's Justin Bieber? No way.
What was that song? What was that song he came out with a few years ago where he was basically apologizing? And it was one of the greatest lines ever in a song. My mama don't like you, and she likes everyone.
Yeah, that's powerful lyrics, man.
I like that line from the Justin Bieber song.
That's the only thing.
Anything else, I'm not sold on that. Yeah.
You didn't like that other stuff, okay?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. You guys out there, you're listening to us. Either you're rolling your eyes, you think we're idiots. Give us your feedback, man. Tell us your top 5 on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, all at Liquid Carnage.
I think that's a great question to ask people. I think it's a great way to sign off on the show too.
Yeah, I know Tom's got a whole different set of top 5 for artists for him, and I know he's rolling his eyes, and he's also on Liquid Carnage EP, or is it Liquid Carnage _EP on Twitter? We follow him. You can find him on our Twitter followers. Tom's a very interesting guy when he starts tweeting. We're hoping he'll tweet more. He actually does tweet his show notes about us now on his Twitter feed, so if you can go back and see his true thoughts about us, if it keeps you intrigued.
Oh, that'll definitely keep me intrigued. I'm going to go on there now and take a look.
Yeah,
that's
I
awesome.
Noticed that the other day that he's posting his show notes to us on there, so it's a good way to keep us honest and see if we're actually following through with what he says.
Well, I know we have differing opinions. I think the one thing that we do have in common is that for both of us, the emotional connection to our top five or the music that we like, it's because it touches us emotionally. It's not just a vacuum that goes into one ear and out the other. There's got to be a connection to it. There's got to be something that means something, whether it's lyrics, beats, something that touches us emotionally. So you and I can at least agree on that part.
Oh, I agree. You know, music is such a huge part of my life. When I'm in the kitchen cooking, when I'm in the car driving, and you know, I do CrossFit for my exercise to stay healthy. And if the music's not right in the gym, it's a whole different flow with the people. You need something that's heavy and fast paced and just fun to get you in that mood. You know, they played some bullshit, you know, top 40 poppy stuff last week, and everyone just stopped and looked at the coach like, "What are you doing? Give us something we can lift to. Give us something that's just going to drive us, not, you know, make us roll our eyes."
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you on that.
All right, buddy. Hey, man. Thanks for indulging me in our conversation about music.
Hey, we didn't have much of an argument. We did good.
Actually, yeah, we did. There wasn't much conflict. There's a lot of kumbaya.
Well, I think
nice.
The nice thing is that our picks of albums were totally different from each other. But like I said, the emotional connection was what was most important.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the heart of Liquid Carnage. It's we're two different people in two very different avenues of life, and I think that's what makes us work.
I think so. I agree with you.
All right, buddy. Well, I'll tell you what. Like I said, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Liquid Carnage. We posted a great picture of our executive producer, Tom, today. Comment on that picture, and we might give you a shout-out on next week's show. So, with that being said, I'm Scott.
I'm Jason. And as always, if you never know quite what to say, just have yourself some Liquid Carnage.